Officer!
You share the roads with them.
I usually smoke about $20 of weed a day.
But you have no idea.
I just want to die.
What's driving them? Tonight, the ABC Action News investigation.
You want me mellow, not crazy.
Driving high.
When I'm crazy, I go to jail.
Behind the wheel. The crash scene photos only tell part of the story. Drivers on drugs causing car accidents are on the rise, and Tampa Bay leads the state. We mapped out the data. 465 drug-confirmed crashes in Tampa Bay since 2014, compared to 235 in Jacksonville, 232 in Orlando, 161 in South Florida, and 85 in Southwest Florida. And what's even worse, sometimes these drivers charged with being under the influence of drugs never even get prosecuted and eventually get their license back. US 19, Clearwater after midnight.
I need to sleep is what I need to do.
A young woman arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence of drugs.
I mean, like, I could tell that I was swerving, and I even said it to him.
She tells the Florida Highway Patrol trooper she's a recovering addict and goes to a methadone clinic to wean herself off of drugs. She says she's done nothing wrong.
They said you cannot get me for a DUI being on methadone because I am prescribed that.
1, 2.
ABC Action News obtained hours of dash cam video showing suspected drugged drivers being pulled over by the Florida Highway Patrol.
Well, I smell a strong odor, okay? So you guys are smoking it right now.
The video shows situations ranging from drivers suspected of smoking marijuana.
Can you roll the car over my head?
To being on something much stronger.
Kill me.
What are you seeing when it comes to drug driving on the roads?
Well, unfortunately, as we have more motorists that enter Florida roadways, we're seeing more motorists that are actually having drug-impaired problems.
And the numbers back that up. Drug-confirmed crashes in Florida are increasing every year, up 32% since 2014. And they're becoming deadlier. Fatal crashes involving drugged drivers are up 47% in 3 years. And drugged driving has become a 24-hour problem in Florida. State records show 42% of all drug-involved crashes happen during daylight hours.
Sir.
Just ask Jim Swope.
And he was headed straight for me.
He suffered 2 spinal fractures after being hit head-on by a wrong-way driver on US 19 at 7:30 in the morning.
There's just no excuse for it. It's like a loaded gun.
FHP arrested the driver who hit him on suspicion of being under the influence of drugs. According to the arrest report, the driver appeared dazed, his eyes glassy and bloodshot, his speech slow and mumbled, his body shaking with tremors. He was charged with 3 counts of DUI. But all of those charges were dropped. In fact, the driver was never even prosecuted. The Pasco County State Attorney's Office tells me they couldn't prove the driver was on drugs because he refused to take a drug test. Is it harder to get a conviction when it comes to drugged driving?
It's very difficult.
Attorney Peter Sartez has both defended and sued drivers on drugs. He says in Florida it's difficult to convict drug drivers because, unlike alcohol, there are no set limits that tell drivers when they've had too much. And many suspected of drug driving refuse to take a blood test.
And the reasonable doubt is there is no smell. There is no outward scientific data. It is purely a case of circumstances.
Not only that, but in Florida, there's no mandatory minimum sentence for first-time DUI offenders. And buried in the fine print of every DUI ticket is this loophole that actually lets drivers who were just arrested keep driving. Under the box, eligible for permit, if the officer checks yes, the DUI citation actually serves as a temporary driver's license for 10 days.
A matter of degrees. And it could have been over.
The man who hit Jim Swope was allowed to drive for a week and a half after his DUI arrest.
Somebody's letting these people off easy because I think they ought to get slammed first offense, maximum mandatory prison term. I mean, you got to come down hard on these people or they're going to be right back.
And attorneys tell ABC Action News, given that Florida is the pill mill capital of the country, it's really no surprise that there are more drugged drivers out there on the roads with you. And by the way, the man you heard in this piece begging and screaming to die and asking the officer to kill him, well, we looked up his arrest report and we also found that he was allowed to drive for 10 days after his arrest.